What should Gary Johnson have said when he was asked, "What would you do about Aleppo?" He should have said, "I will do nothing. What will you do?" He should have explained that our mistaken interventionist policy of getting involved in other countries' internal affairs is the fundamental cause for this blowback and problem we have with ISIS and other Islamicists. He should have explained that we need to focus on our own self-defense, and that when we intervene like we did in Iraq, we cause these groups to be created. For example, ISIS did not exist when Saddam Hussein was in power. He was a secularist, and he hated the fundamentalists. And the fundamentalists were trying to overthrow him, but he was a bloody dictator and he kept them in check. So they were never able to prosper. When he was defeated by the United States and when we intervened in Saddam Hussein's regime, what we did was open the door for the Shiites to take over. In fact, when they had the first election, a Sunni leader, which is more allied with Saddam, won a plurality, but the United States backed the Shia leader, and what happened? Then Iran had more influence in Iraq, and the Sunnis looked for another option. They went underground, and that's the origin of ISIS. But it happens all over the world. Every time we intervene, we get blowback, unintended consequences, because it's a mistaken foreign policy. We should not try to be the policemen of the world. And let me point out the unpaid policemen. That's the part that bothers Trump the most. And instead, we should focus on self-defense and our own internal problems. We have plenty of them to take care of. So there's a lot of wisdom in our Constitution which says that the government should only be involved in the common defense of the states. It says nothing about being the world policeman or getting involved in other people's affairs or civil wars, etc. Gary Johnson has explained this before, but unfortunately, he was caught by this trick question. And I'll explain later why it's a trick question. So what we need to do is just follow the Constitution, and then we'd be okay. And there was a lot of wisdom there in the Constitution. No foreign entanglements, like our founding fathers used to say. And that would be a good policy, and we wouldn't have all this blowback, and we wouldn't have terrorists in our country, our own citizens, supporting ISIS and committing terrorist actions, because as the terrorists have been saying forever, even since bin Laden, if we just did not intervene and take sides in these horrible, struggles between medieval fundamentalists and secularists and dictators, they're all no good, and we shouldn't be backing any of them. But since we choose one side, of course, the other side hates us. And if you have a Muslim here in America, which is unscrupulous, he might think, well, if I commit some terrorist attack, I will convince the United States to change their policy. That's what terrorists are trying to do when they commit these atrocities, these murders. They're trying to change the policy of the country that they're trying to influence. That applies to all terrorists, not only Muslim fundamentalists. It's a terrorist strategy. It's a losing strategy, and it's immoral, and we shouldn't. A rational person would not emulate it. But that's what they think, and that's what they try to do. They try to increase the cost of a policy that they hate. And so we wouldn't have any of these people in our own country committing terrorist actions. And by the way, ISIS has never attacked the United States. They just try to get these stupid people to do terrorist actions in their name for them. And of course, terrorism is a no-win situation because it just destroys any possibility of a civil and stable government, even if they win. So what we should do, and what Gary should have said, and he said this before, that we are suffering from what? From the blowback, from the unintended consequences of mistaken foreign policy. In fact, often we are fighting against our own armaments. So both sides, like ISIS, a lot of their weapons were confiscated or dropped or abandoned in their struggles with other Iraqi army people. And so this U.S. Army's weapons that is being used in these struggles, and we never sent them and never got involved, they wouldn't have these weapons. Anyway, this irritates me quite a bit because I don't like our foreign policy discussions and public policy discussions to be focusing on other country hellholes like Aleppo and other cities that I don't give a damn about, instead of focusing on the cities in our country like Chicago and the leaders of the thugs that are making life miserable in our own cities. So, for example, Hillary Clinton is quite proud that she knows the names of all these terrorist thugs and leaders. That shouldn't be the focus, and we're losing focus. Does she know the name of the gang leaders in Chicago? No, they never talk about it. That's what we should be focused on, not these other countries' thugs and criminals and terrorists. It's none of our business, and we're wasting our time and money and our lives by getting involved over there. It's like tar baby. There's no way to deal with them without getting all tarred up and messed up. So what is the trick, the sophistic trick in this question? The question was, what would you do about Aleppo? There's two tricks in just one question. That's some feat. The first trick is that the question has a false premise. The premise is that you're supposed to do something. It's implied that Gary Johnson should have some plan of action to take care of Aleppo. Well, that's a false premise. In fact, it's not our responsibility. Aleppo is not our responsibility. We don't have to do anything. If the interviewer thinks we should do something, he should go over there and spend his life and his money to do whatever he wants. It's a free country, but it's not a proper function of the federal government to get involved, at least according to our Constitution. The second trick in this trick question is that you refer to a problem by using the name of a city. So if I said to you, well, what would you do about Chicago? Well, Chicago, I don't know. In what respect? What is the problem that you're talking about? So they use the name of a city to make it unclear what they're asking, so that the guy who's supposed to answer the question will look stupid by not knowing what they're referring to. That's a devious, sophistic trick, and that's what the guy used, the interviewer. Now, why did he do this? What is his motivation for trying to embarrass Gary Johnson? Which, by the way, he's made almost all of these points before in other forums, so credit to him. Well, he doesn't want Gary Johnson in the debate. Why? Because he thinks that Gary Johnson will take more votes from Hillary according to the pollsters that he believes in. Personally, I don't think that's true. I think it's just the opposite. But that's the whole point here. He wants to keep Gary Johnson out of the debate. So that's why they slipped him that banana peel to see if he would slip on it. And unfortunately, even when Gary came to explain his lack of recollection of what this city was called or what the problem they were referring to, He had a lot of chances to explain everything I did now, and not to be apologetic, but to go on the offensive. So next time, fight for your values and your principles, Gary. Thank you.